Good morning, good afternoon. How's everybody doing?
Hey, good
Hello,
morning. Good
everyone.
afternoon, Lavi.
Good morning.
So
Hello.
Levy, Judith, this is Dale. Dale's joining us today. Dale's somebody I've known, lifelong friend, somebody I've known for quite a while. He's a licensed clinical social worker up here at the University of Utah. I'm going to let him do a little intro for himself as well. Thought I'd have him join us and he can tell us what's wrong with all three of us.
Nice to meet you, Dale. And thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you as well. I'll try and stay away from the clinical diagnostics today. That's a longer perspective, but we'll see where we end up.
So I know he's got it up his sleeve. He's known me so long. He's probably used me as use cases in studies and other things that I'm just not aware of. He knows what's wrong with me. You guys are going to be a mystery for it.
Did he fix you, Lavi? Lavi, Troy.
He could probably fix Levy. No, I'm not fixed yet. I'm still broken. Still broken.
Some things you just got to leave well enough alone.
Pretty much. So how's everything going, Levy, in the world of technology? Any new experiences?
Not much. Trying to use AI as usual, and run into some use cases which is not supposed to be use cases for AI, but yeah, well, have to be on the bandwagon. So AI is everything. It's all the buzz around it. So
corporate mandate stuff.
Yeah, gotta love that. Yeah, when you have to use AI instead of just using an Excel function, that's really painful if you think about all the unnecessary expenditure of energy, resources, whatnot. I can sense the rainforest dying in my hands, while I'm using it. So
when these mandates are there, what's the impact to your team? You notice any changes in people and behavior?
Not yet. Not yet. I think I mean this is a technical team, so I don't think that this affect much. But if I'm thinking about my own behavior, I think it has a good side and bad side as well as everything usually. And sometimes I can feel this AI fatigue that you would use AI for I don't know, spelling a word because you just tired of trying to figure it out. And then the other thing is that it helps. I mean, it's definitely helpful, but you shouldn't just run along and act like an overlord with the minions, and you just send out the minions to do everything, and you don't have to do anything, and you're just floating above sitting on a cloud. So yeah, I mean, you should have to find your own path in there, I think.
I agree with you. So in the context of this part of the discussion, if you think about AI in a containment model, you guys will have to help me. It's the Russian stacking dolls. What's it? Matryoshka?
Yeah, Matryoshka is called.
Yeah.
Like a stacking doll set, you have layers in artificial intelligence as well. So the base layer, overarching biggest part of it, the foundation is artificial intelligence itself, machine learning, neural networks, deep learning, transformers. What else is there? You got a couple layers for large language models.
Yeah.
But I think generative AI you could probably put before large language models as a layer. It's a bigger component. And most of our focus is on, has been on generative AI, which the very top uppermost, you get into your ChatGPT, your Claude, Perplexity, you get into those. It's interesting what you're talking about still seems to generate or to fall back towards a relationship with generative AI and not some of those other more technical layers, deeper layers. Are you guys building your own language models? Or are you just modifying and using existing language?
I think it is in-house.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of companies are doing more for data protection because they don't want their information out training other language models are available on the internet. It's interesting that we come back so much to generative AI, which is one of the smaller elements or pieces of that foundational model there that I've tried to describe, hopefully not confusingly, but the containment model. And it sits at the top as the smallest component in the spread across that, but yet it's always the primary focus. Is that just because that's the user interface?
Probably that's where your input is most visible, I think.
No, definitely, it is definitely that. I don't know. I wonder how. So when you've got a mandate from a corporation, I wonder how deep the knowledge base is for the decision makers. How far down do they understand the construct for AI, what it is? Because a lot of this stuff you could do with, like you mentioned, functions. You could do it with automation technologies. You could do it with built-in existing functions in Excel, and they choose to go what they call an AI route instead.
The question is, can they mandate it? Because you're talking about it as if it would be kind of normal that a company is mandating the employees to use it, but can it be mandated?
Yeah, because
to ask that question.
They can tell you that everyone have to come up with, I don't know, 6 cases every month that you would use AI for instance.
But I don't know if putting it in as a goal, for example, right? And performance reviews. I don't know if it's valid or is it ethical to do it, because if you know what you do and you don't need AI for it, why would you use it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but can they really tell you? And yes, they can measure it. I get that. They can measure it. But can that really be a goal?
But now you're just telling us that, okay, so if it doesn't make sense or if it's unethical, then the leaders wouldn't do it, right? For sure.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Happening.
My question is on the mandate, because that's how Troy you phrased it.
Yeah.
Can they suggest you, or do they tell you that you must use it, because if you don't use it, there are going to be consequences? Does that make sense?
That's what I'm saying, that they tell you that you have to use or come up with a number of cases when you actually used AI instead of the regular route, but you used AI to solve an issue. And you have to come up with something. It's like when a policeman have a number of tickets they have to issue, and then they harass the homeless people. So that's how it ends up, because you just simply don't have that many things that you're doing. It's just it's a testament of the leadership not knowing for sure what's the the foot soldiers doing on the ground. It's just they imagine that AI will help everything, and then let's just use AI for it, use this, but it happened before. How many times it happened before? I mean, come on, it's like and we humanity run into it a million times already, that okay, here's this brand new thing that seems like magic, let's use it for everything, and then half of the population died or being crippled or failed to repopulate or whatnot. Like what was that? What they sprayed to everything, and then it turned out to be a carcinogen. The DDT or what was that white powder? They even throw it on kids for disinfection, and then now they know that it's not. And it's the same with asbestos. Asbestos was everywhere, basically everywhere. And then it turned out that to be one of the most carcinogenous thing on Earth possible. And then, at least we tried.
Yeah, that is interesting. In the context, how old is AI? Really, I think in the 50s, you go back a good 70 years for all those foundational elements. So we've tried all these things, to your point, Levy, before the current form of AI, agentic and agents and bots. We've been doing things that could be considered AI because they're under that AI umbrella. And I don't recall, other than things like if you were in a support role, ticket counts, call handling counts, stuff like that, this mundane, meaningless metrics, I don't really recall anything being mandated at that level that you're describing, And then Judith, to your point, you can measure it, but what are you measuring? You're measuring, I clicked on this.
How many questions you put in? Yeah. How many questions you put in there to Copilot or whatsoever, and what came out of it and what you used? I don't know, but they can measure it, because remember, what was his name? Levi Balázs came as well. He said it, right? A couple of weeks ago. He said it that they are being measured, how many times they are using it. So we know that everything that's technology, you can track it one way or another. So I get it.
In his context, it kind of makes sense. You're in drug discovery, but
I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying that it's possible. So, but when something is possible, and on the flip side of it you get it as a direction that yeah, you need to use it. At the end of the day, you don't know what that information is going to be used for, right? Just like when they tell you that, hey, up until now you didn't need to track your time because you're an overhead, right? So we know that
cost center,
it is what it is, that's the cost. And but from tomorrow on, we just want to see what that cost is. So please put in your 8 hours every day and then choose this or that or whatever code. It's not just, and we've been down that path several times, right? It's not just that they want to see how many hours you put in. They have another reason asking that to do. And this is my concern with this as well, that you guys just said that it can be a Monday.
Yeah, and we've talked about this previously, and this is where that distrust of organizations like HR, for example, one of my favorite ones to pick on, even though I have a lot of people I know who are in HR, in that discipline. What is their purpose? What is the value? What are they hiding? And who, at what level, is entitled to know what the actual goal is? Remember when we had to do our skills assessments, and it was, oh yeah, because we just want to make sure if we've got a position that opens up in this part of the business, we can fill it with somebody from this part of the business. Nah, nobody believed that. Everybody's like, throw the bullshit flag. That's not true. That's not what's happening here. Yeah. So psychologically, we're all forming these conspiracy theories, and they're probably partially right or even fully right, depending on the context. It's our behavior, and I don't know, but Dale, is that a natural behavior, a reflex?
Yeah, I think people often go to those speculations on what's happening in their world, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I think that's what I would normally tell people in those contexts is to, stick to what's relevant at the time.
What do you think?
That's true. That's right. But when you're in, and I understand why you're saying that, but when you're in the businesses, as long as we are and seen so many things happening, starting out similarly, then I don't know if it's really just a conspiracy theory from our side, or is it the experience talking out of us?
Yeah, it's probably both, right? I mean, some of both, and probably more experience when you've been there for a long time, for sure. But ultimately, the question that I have when it comes to thoughts like that are how do they help? And the human brain has that large capacity to think into the future and to really try and pull context into things that may or may not be there. I mean, it's part of what brains do, but it's kind of looking at our own thought processes and asking ourselves, what thought process is helpful? Is it helpful to look into that piece and say, what could happen here? Sure, it could be, right? Which is why we do it as a species. But ultimately, once you've done that, how helpful is it to stay in that mindset?
That's absolutely true, because you can go down on a spiral and then just bury yourself deeper in the hole. So that's right, and I think we as leaders, that's kind of something that we've been encouraging as well, our people, when they came back with something negative as such, that hey, yeah, I mean, I understand your concern, blah blah blah, but we have a direction that we need to follow. We either do it together or we are not doing it together, right? So, well, phrased differently, but that's the whole point of it, just to make sure that they are not going down a rabbit hole that they shouldn't go down with. But it doesn't mean that as an individual you're not going to have your own thoughts.
No, you're absolutely right.
And you have to, I mean, you have a self-preservation instinct, I think, in these cases, because as a call center person or whoever was taking calls as a first level, you learn through your career that you have to develop, and you see that those places where you were working, they are getting automated and replaced by AI. So you feel like threatened somewhat because your fallback or your past has been wiped out. So now you feel like if you would start now, you wouldn't even have that opening back there. But you have enough experience to understand that you couldn't be a rookie in the same field what you are doing right now. So when they ask you to automate yourself, and your only projected future path, it means that you are replaced, and then at some point you will be pushed off the road by the automation you put in place, then you just simply try to be as resistant as possible without attracting too much attention to your own practices. But if you would have like a path that would diverge from, so you automated this, you shouldn't worry about this anymore, let's do something else instead. But it's always like, so we automate this and then we can use all our combine cardinal knowledge to do something more meaningful. But what? And then if you have something at hand that, okay, this is what we're going to do, then you would probably be more lenient to automate. Sorry.
There's a lot in there to unpack, but Troy, you and I, we've been through these conversations so many times with our resources. They were like, yeah, it only takes 2 minutes. Why would I automate? And I understand exactly what you just said because of that, Levy. But if you have the right leadership and the right emotional intelligence level, right, and the skills for leadership, then they are gonna have that kind of conversation with you. That yes, your position, in a sense or in that sense, is going to be one way or another eliminated or taken over by automation or AI, but here is the path to move forward and this is what you can do. Are you interested in it? But most of the people, and I know it from experience, most of the people are not interested in that kind of conversation as an individual.
For sure.
Because they are just like so narrow-sighted, narrow-minded that no, they only see that's the end. If I do this, I'm not gonna have a job. So for that conversation, you need two parties, and both of them need to be open. And that's the part that I always, not always, but in many cases I was struggling. And I know, Troy, you had the same experience. So at the end of the day, what can you tell somebody who is not willing to listen?
But it's not just
develop or grow.
Judith, it's not just close-mindedness, I think, because some people are actually confident into some degree of technology. And if you think about it, IT, everyone thinks that whoever works in IT is a geek, plays games, doesn't have social life, whatnot. But 100 out of 100 people, there's like, I don't know, 15% of or 15 people are like that in IT anymore, because the field is so vast. I mean, there's so many resources needed to run the show that the true IT guys are few far in between, and then you would have people who are just as much trained in IT to do one particular task, and they're happy with it. They just do their job. They don't want to move ahead, and they are not interested in anything else. So, but they are the ones who doing it every day, so they should be the source what to automate, right? But if they give you what you can automate, then they will know that their job is on the line. So why would they?
Again, it's a mindset. Levy, I understand what you're saying, and yes, those type of people are one of the most, what it's called, beneficial for the company, because they are doing 70% of the work, right? Basically, with doing everything the same way they used to do, and we need somebody who is carrying the workload, right? I get that, but what I'm saying is that if that person is not willing to have that kind of conversation, how to move forward, as a leader, there's not much you can do, because you're just hitting that wall, basically, and trying to help, but you can't because the person is not listening.
And not to jump in and defend the corporate position, but if you remember, Jid, we had a lot of training we would ask folks to take it, and it was centered around like unconscious bias. How do you identify an unconscious bias you may have, and how is it affecting you, right? And this is one of those things. Your fear, you see the threat, but you suppress it day to day. You don't really think about it until something triggers a thought. To Levy's point, you see, I'm being asked to show how I do all this. Why? And then you get paranoid, and it bubbles to the surface. In the context of what I described for the layer, so now think of it as a pyramid. The wider base, artificial intelligence, followed by machine learning, followed by neural networks. We know in technology, if you feed a neural network wrong information, and correlating it to this, a negative thought, it just propagates, it reinforces it, that's how the neural network structure in your technology is now set. You've told it, think negative first all the way through. They're going to fire me, and that's what it does. You build the technology that way. Dell, is that how human neural networks, the equivalent of a neural network, is that how it works in the brain?
That's a great question. I think human beings are specifically set up to be protective of ourselves and our species, right? So anytime we feel like there's a threat, we're going to have a threat reaction. Autonomic nervous system is going to kick in, and we're going to have that fight or flight reaction, right? And just depending on your personality and how you were raised, you're going to react to that particular threat based on that situation. Some people are going to run, right? They're going to flee. You've got some people that are going to just sit down and submit and just kind of be there until the end, and you've got some people that are going to fight. And so kind of going into that, yeah, people are wired that way.
Yeah, and that's interesting because Judith, I don't think you ever encountered this specifically, but maybe something similar. I had a person I wanted to promote, and this would have been the only way I could have given this person a pay raise that would have got them closer to market value, closer to the cost of living. This person refused the promotion because they saw it as a step in the process of being eliminated. And I'm looking at it going, this is the only way I can give you the raise you need, the raise you want, and you're turning down a promotion. And I don't understand why, because that's not what I was trying to do. I wasn't trying to find a way to eliminate somebody. I was trying to find a way to pull somebody up to where they should be, how they fit in the organization in relationship to their peers. So to find somebody who didn't want that pay raise bad enough to accept what they considered a risk, I was kind of confounded by it.
That's interesting. No, I never had that kind of experience.
No, most of our people were begging for their, they don't care what you do to give me, pay me what I'm worth, man. So this was an anomaly, and like, wow.
It could be that he had that kind of experience previously. That's the only thing that I can think of. Or some little bird was just talking to his ears. I don't know.
Ultimately, he probably had his own agenda.
I'm going to disappoint both of you. It was not a he.
She, sorry.
Yeah, she was afraid to take the promotion.
What was the percentage of that level of I mean, what was
Increase?
No, I mean, how many people with the same level were in the group, and her previous position was like
this is from a mainframe team, and this was somebody who was part of, and I'm going to just swag the total number based off of the staffing requirements. I think there were 12 people in that role, and this person was substantially below average and well below the next up lowest paid person. And this is a problem I inherited when I started, and I was totally confounded that anybody would allow her to be that far below average for the department pay before I had started, right? And so this was an interesting experience.
Maybe she thought that that's somewhat like an advantage. In her case, if there's a layoff, she will be spared because she's doing the same job as a higher paid individual. So maybe it's also plausible. A protection.
We're never gonna get to know, but human brain works interestingly.
Well, Dale can tell us, right?
Dale can tell us, and I have a question for Dale, just to move into a different direction. Well, not necessarily, because it goes to the layoff, being afraid of being laid off. That's one thing, but then when it happens, and it happened to all three of us, how does that, what do you see, how does that impact the people in general? Because yes, obviously from a professional perspective, it's hitting hard, obviously, because we think that, hey, I'm not worthy enough to be capped. We know that that's probably not the case, but it has a downfall effect on our own personal lives as well, because mortgage is not going away only because you're not getting paid. Kids have to go to school, need to buy petrol or gas and things like that, and groceries. It can be a lot.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're looking at a situation where somebody's losing their job, I mean, that's a big deal, right? And I don't know anybody that's not going to feel that way. I do know that people are going to react differently to it based on their own psychology. So some people who may not be as tied into that situation or that role as another person may react, I'll put it, maybe less reactive to it than somebody who's really heavily tied into the role. But ultimately, I think losing the job has all those implications that you talked about, right? That loss of income, the loss of face, how does the family feel about the fact that you're not looking? How long is it going to take me to find a new job, right? All those thoughts are going to go into it. That worry about your identity and self-worth is really going to kind of kick in as to who am I now, right? It could potentially impact your mood. It could create an awful lot of anxiety with regards to those worries about the what if is going to happen in my life. It could create depression depending on how heavily involved you are in that role, or that thought of your being that role, or how long you're out of work, right? And the worries about how long you're out of work. It could lead to a lot of chronic stress. It could lead to healthcare issues. It could lead to somatic symptoms where you're just feeling like you're having healthcare issues because the anxiety is so high, right? So there's an awful lot of ways that type of situation can impact somebody. So just even the thought of it, I think crossing somebody's mind is going to have psychological impact.
Yeah, and
I'm
there's
guessing
another.
Go
I was
ahead,
going to add, there's another element on that too, Dale. The self-worth value that drops significantly because you take a job. I was making this salary previously, and I've just taken a job because I need the job. Now I'm making this salary, and it's way down here. So you're like, how do I reconcile? I was able to achieve so much, and now I just got to take this.
Yeah, like in my case as well. I just needed to take whatever, even if it came with a pay cut. But in my case, it was because of the visa situation that I didn't really have a choice or option to wait for something better to come in from a salary perspective. There are loads of circumstances to take into consideration, but as the corporations are not doing that. They are just seeing the bottom line, and kind of, I'm guessing HR and everybody else were making that decision. And yes, we've been in that situation as well, but we needed to make the decision. I don't know, we just don't have the bandwidth or the time or the willingness or whatsoever to go back to the people who we had to lay off and ask them, hey, a month or two later, hey, how are you? Have you managed to find a job and whatsoever? It feels like, again, being on both sides of the story, it feels like that corporations are just not putting enough thought behind that, and they are not really giving you any other options. In my case, the same level of leadership for another position was available, never got offered or never got asked. They just said that, hey, your role is going to be eliminated, and that's when people are just like, can you hire and fire at the same time? We know the answer, right? But going back to the psychological part of it, Dale, that we were talking about, I guess it all depends on where we are coming from, with what background, how strong personality we have, because I know that in many cases, and I'm seeing it on LinkedIn as well, so many posts from so many people who got laid off, and I don't know, like you, Troy, 2 years into it, not being able to find a permanent job, and not because your expectations are too high, but it's just not working, and then people are starting to go down and become desperate because, not just desperate, but depressed as well, because, like I said, you have to pay, so
yeah. So technically,
you have to live a life, and then
freelancer, and the freelance work available today is so far below what it was just 2 years ago that you might as well go get a job. And I'll use In-N-Out Burger as an example, because I know they started at like $18 an hour. You might as well go work for In-N-Out Burger because you'll get benefits, and that's the same pay you're essentially ending up with when you try to do these gig jobs, or the short time boxed contracts that pay nothing. There's so many of us out here now that people are just offering nothing.
I would have done the same thing as well, but legally I wasn't allowed, right? But Levi, you did something similar as well, going to the school, local school, and working for peanuts, because at least you had a reason to wake up.
Small stream is better than no stream at all.
No stream, yeah.
And you had a reason to wake up every morning and go and do something useful for kids, right? So, and for school, for education, even though the salary wasn't or isn't that much, but your benefits were being paid as well. So there's a lot. I just feel so bad for those people who are getting laid off, by no means because of their fault, but because of corporate decisions. And then they just cannot find their way back, and again, going into dark places in their head.
Judy, you mentioned something that I think is really critical to this whole situation, right? That this idea that we have a reason to keep on going and moving forward in our life, right? Talking about Levi and his process and why he took those jobs that he took. gives him a reason to get up in the morning, gives him some thought processes on, being able to help others, or whatever those processes are in your mind. I think it's developing those processes through a situation like that that helps people get back on their feet to some degree, right? Or keeps you on your feet, even if it is, and I hate to say this, treading water to a large degree when you're coming from one larger income to a smaller income, and suddenly you're going, now how do I make ends meet, right? Which is still another stressor on your life, but you're making ends meet, and you're finding that path towards that life worth living, which isn't that why we're all really here?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's in my situation. That's what I needed to find as well, even though I couldn't take another job like what Troy was describing or what Levi was doing because of the circumstances. But I needed to find that reason to get out of bed every morning and look at the future, that this is what I want to achieve and this is what I need to do for that.
I was just going to say that I often talk to folks about this idea of the role we have in our world, and how strongly we tie ourselves to that role, right? I mean, if you're an executive and everything about you is that executive, and then suddenly you're not that executive, and you have to swim upstream in order to find out who you are. That's again putting yourself into that tough position to get your mind. You could take your mind completely out of being who you want to be and move a completely different direction, right? It kind of goes to where people get into those negative coping strategies. I'm going to talk about using substances or drugs or whatever you want to, or alcohol, or maybe sleeping all the time, or
gambling.
Gambling, sex addiction, you name it, and people get involved in it because they're losing track or sense of who they really want to be. And it's because we lost that sense of the role we have, or we got so tied to that role we have and lost the sense of who we really are. Yeah. So it's really coming back to ourselves and finding out who am I really? And who do I want to be? And moving towards that person that you want to.
I just want to be the guy that gets the one-way ticket to Arid. If you've watched the Project Hail Mary, you know what I mean.
Just last night, yeah.
I just want that one-way ticket to Arid. It looks like it's going to be such a better.
I wanted to add something to what Dea was saying and also what Judith was saying, because I think structure is very important to your peace of mind in your life. But I think we all run into that our main structure is the work that we do, and that's where we are mostly, in our heads. And because Judith was boxed into this tighter spot, so she couldn't really go to work anytime she wanted or pick any job she would just pick for the sake of income.
Uber driving.
She was losing that structure herself. So I think and maybe it's our fault. I mean, it's definitely our fault because we choose to do this, but we have to get a different mindset, or get into a different mindset, that our structure is not defined by the work we do, but something else in our lives or that we might be good at, or and of course working is still very important in our life because that's where the income is coming from, but it shouldn't be that what defines us, right?
Yeah, and it shouldn't be the center of our lives either, but at the same time kind of it is, because you need money to live, but you need to be able to, and that's the other part, you need to be able to switch off your mind, 8-9 hours after you started your day, right, and do something else. So going back to what you said, work is not what defines you, because if you don't let your brain rest, it's always gonna spin, and it's gonna be way more easier to get again down the rabbit hole that, hey, something is not right,
or burnout.
Yeah, I talk an awful lot about practicing mindfulness, right? That idea of being intentional and attentional towards, keeping yourself where you want to be. Talk a lot about the idea of, staying present, because often when we're thinking about all those other things, that who could I be, or what is happening with these people, or why is the world the way it is, we get stuck in that future thought. And the real idea is to stay now, stay in the moment, so that you can move towards that person who you want to be.
But you have to have a goal for that, and that's what I'm seeing on not with work, but in general. That's what I'm seeing on people, that they they don't really have a plan for future. And that's when I heard so many times, especially here in the US, I heard so many times from people saying that, hey, one day at a time. Yeah, I get that piece because of what you just said, right? You don't want to talk about and you don't want to think about the future, but at the same time, you need a plan for the future. And if you don't have a plan for the future, you're just getting stuck in one place. And then you just go ahead and start complaining about, hey, I'm not making any progress. It's in your head, man.
Yeah, and Judith, I think that's a great point, and that keeps bringing me back. So career change is definitely something that's been top of mind for me. After this much time of just looking at the freelance work that's available, it's just not worth it. Struggling to find anybody that finds enough value in what I bring, excuse me, to hire me. Why don't I just switch careers? And it keeps drawing me into that in my mind, my mental conversation with myself. What do I want to move on and do? And I come back to what do I actually like? What do I love? It just all centers around technology. So trying to find something that's centered around technology is still my primary driver, my primary goal. I mean, I subscribe to content, and I'm looking at one now. This I won't name because I don't know if it'll get flagged. But this is the first edition. This is every quarter you get a paper copy from this place that was all dedicated. It's dedicated to AI. That continues to be something I'm inspired to follow. I just like it. I love it. How does that transform in my life into what is the real next step? Right? How do I get into a position that allows me to continue with that passion, that probably gets me out of this continuous battle of trying to replace the job I had with a job like the job I had with something new? It's a struggle.
Would be my answer.
I don't know either.
So I think everything that's been said is really very relevant, right? This idea that you've got to have a connection to your why. And when I talk about your connection to your why, I'm talking about your values. What's intrinsic in your life that makes you who you really want to be and who you are? Like, do you value authenticity? Do you value love? Do you value nature? I mean, what is it that's really core in your life? And those particular ideas are the things that really make you who you are. And then, Judy, you mentioned this idea of moving towards goals, right? And goals it's really critical to have goals that connect to those values. And if you're moving towards those values, then you're really going to connect to that who you are. The values are those things you can't reach out and touch. You can't sit there and say, I'm going to be love. I'm going to touch it. You can conceptualize it. But the goal you can connect to, and you can put yourself a path together that can get you there, as long as it's reasonable in your life. And it's really kind of thinking about that idea of reasonability towards your goal as well.
Not setting unrealistic expectations for ourselves is critical. Yeah, I agree.
Good discussion. We went a little bit longer than we normally do, but good discussion. Any closing thoughts?
Keep being who you are and love yourself.
Can I tell you a quick little story? Notebook LM is a great tool to analyze YouTube videos and channels like ours. It's given me a lot of feedback about how we close, how I close specifically. This is not the right way to close if you want engagement, by the way, according to Notebook LM. I acknowledge it and I accept it, but I don't know if I'll change. So happy thoughts. It is good to talk to everyone. Hope you have a great rest of the week.
New week.
And in next week's episode, prepare to be blown away.
There you go. Good talking to you guys. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.